We know election days is only a few days away, and while voters are on their way to the polling station, I hear that candidates from both parties, Democratic Party and Republican Party, talking about China being one of the key campaign messages. And so let's take a listen.
35 Senate spots are up for grabs, and there are really a few critical races to watch across the country, including the race for Ohio's open seat. Let's get down to Alon Moy with the latest there and why China may emerge as a key issue for Ohioans. Connect the dots, Alon.
Yeah, Brian, you're right. The race for Ohio's open Senate seat has been a nail-biter. Democratic candidate Representative Tim Ryan and Republican J.D. Vance traded volleys during their debate in Youngstown last night. They clashed on everything from guns to abortion to immigration. But there's one issue they actually agree on: the need to be tough on China and bring jobs and manufacturing back to the U.S. And in fact, they tried to out-hawk each other.
If we don't do it, you know who's going to dominate these industries? China. And we can't have it. If you were half as good of a legislator as you pretend to be, Youngstown wouldn't have lost 50,000 jobs, and those steelworkers would not be coming up to me telling me you failed them.
But China is not just an adversary. It's also a big investor in Ohio. According to state data, China has a stake in 34 businesses and employs about 5,600 people. Chinese foreign direct investment in Ohio totaled $1.7 billion at the end of 2020. And that doesn't include the new $900 million Semcor factory that broke ground this summer to make EV battery film separators. So, Brian, whoever wins this race will have to balance their current rhetoric against some of the market realities. Back over to you.
Yeah, there is. I mean, and certainly Youngstown, I think, was probably the place to highlight it. I mean, you go up to sort of northeastern Ohio, Cleveland-ish, Erie, Pennsylvania, Warren, Ohio, that whole region really has been decimated with jobs. Where do you think this might rank with people, though, Alon? I mean, if you go after China, is that going to be a selling point?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think this is a very salient point in Ohio. Tim Ryan has made this part of the centerpiece of his campaign, even putting out ads that angered some people in the Asian American community because of some of the rhetoric he used, saying point blankly, it's us versus China in some of his advertising. So I think because of the job losses and because of the challenges that the Rust Belt has felt over the past 2 decades, longer than that, that's one of the reasons why trade and jobs is such a big issue, particularly in Ohio.
Yeah, I think people hopefully are smart enough to realize the going after the Chinese government is not going after the Chinese people. Chinese people have nothing to do with it. It's the Chinese government that makes all the decisions there. So big difference there. Alon Moy, thank you very much.
So, Mr. Bannon, this is not just about Youngstown in Ohio, but I heard very similar debate in Pennsylvania, in Missouri, in Arizona. Candidates from both parties have made China a key messages. And so, I mean, I don't recall hearing similar discussions from 4 years ago, from 8 years ago. So what has changed the campaign messaging based on what you have done and what you have seen?
It's not about the Chinese people. It's not about Asian people. It's about the CCP. That would have never happened a couple of years ago. The reason that's happening is happening across because Miles Go came to America and said, hey, don't conflate China, the nation, and the Chinese people with the brutal dictatorship that runs them, the Chinese Communist Party. And this is why the CCP hates War Room. This is why one of the reasons they hate me, because the identification, anything to split their control of the Chinese people and question their legitimacy drives Wan Qishan and Xi crazy. It's going to be even a bigger issue in the future. If Vance ends up winning, which I think he will in Ohio, this will be the central issue of what it really took down Tim Ryan, that Tim Ryan didn't act. He talked a good game, and a lot of these politicians talk a good game, but when you see what they're actually doing, you don't see the actions. One more thing. The whole CHIPS Act, and particularly the cutting off the CCP from the high-end chips, is because it's not driven by the politicians, it's driven by the people. People are responding now to ads. They're responding to politicians to sit there and talk to them like adults about exactly what the CCP is up to. So no, this is a huge tectonic plate shift in American politics. On this issue about the CCP, it's the single only issue in the country that unites the country. I think it's like 85% or 90% support of this is going to be more important in the future. And this is going to be very big as we slide into the financial crisis of next year, and particularly around the coming kinetic war around the naval blockade and air blockade of Taiwan.
Absolutely. I remember from 4 years ago when I hear those debates, it's the Republicans talking about China being the threat. And now I'm hearing everybody is repeating the same rhetoric. And so just like you said, the Pew Research, the new data shows that 82% of the American public considers communist China in a very unfavorable way. And that's a historical high compared with 47% from like 5 years ago. So the whole climate has changed. And thanks to Mr. Miles Guo and War Room and all the people who have been speaking out fearlessly against the CCP's crimes against humanity.